Okay, so good morning, one and all. So in this session, we are going to discuss about threads concepts. So we will be discussing about what do you mean by thread, the definition of thread, followed with the properties related to threads, how these threads are created. Anyhow, you people might be aware of threads, how to create threads in your Java programming. But in this scenario, we'll discuss generally the basic concepts related to threads here. What are the different type of threads we do have? What kind of relationship that exists between these threads? What are the different ways we can use it? And apart from that, we will be seeing some programming related to your threads concept. Okay, so we'll see a simple program. We'll be writing a program for one particular summation of non-negative integer values, and how that program actually works in different threads. What we call thread libraries that we are going to discuss in this particular session. So let's begin. So coming to this, first we'll have a small introduction part related to your threads. Then we'll discuss about the different models what we have. Followed with that, we'll be discussing about thread libraries and threading issues what we have. So basically in this session, we'll try to cover the introduction and the different threading models what we have. And in coming to thread libraries, we'll discuss about around one program. Later we'll see the other programs. Yeah, so coming to your okay, so first and foremost, what do you mean by thread is nothing but basically if we ask that question, everyone says that thread is nothing but a lightweight process, okay? Well, actually, that is the normal property of that particular thread, but what do you mean by thread is nothing but it's a basic unit of our CPU utilization. So whatever the CPU is executing it, in that it will be creating multiple processes. Our operating system is going to create multiple processes. Now these processes, okay, will be internally creating threads. Okay, so definitely that thread is nothing but it's a basic unit of your CPU utilization. Now here, this particular thread is basically we can call it as lightweighted threads. Okay, why it is called as lightweighted threads here is nothing but we it is much more easier to perform. So I'll just compare with the process and then I'll explain you why that thread is a lightweight process. If you talk about a process, how we can create, let us suppose in the previous session we discussed that we have a process P1. Okay, this is your parent process. Let us suppose this is your parent process. Now this process can create, we said, multiple child processes, isn't it? So it can create multiple child processes like P11, P12, P13. So let us suppose this particular parent process has created three different child processes. Now, okay, creation till creation it is okay, but we discussed about properties, like what properties, how to give the access to this particular, the resources to this particular thread. Okay, sorry, processes. How we can give resources to this particular child processes. So we discussed that either we can give the whatever the resources have been allocated to this particular parent process that can be allocated to them child processes by subdividing them equally, or the operating system will provide. So basically when we discussed it, what we said is operating system providing resources to the child process is somewhat complicated, isn't it? So what we said, the whatever the property this particular process, parent process is having, that only will be distributed equally among these particular child processes. Well, that's okay, no problem in that. But if this process keeps on generating multiple processes like this, what will happen? Definitely, it's actually a overburden for the system, because if you create one process is creating these many child processes, then assume that in your system there are some 10,000 processes are executing. Now each process is again creating 10 child processes. So 10,000 into 10, how much? It's very huge processes, and maybe the system may not be able to handle it properly, because definitely the performance of the system will decrease, no doubt in that particular scenario. So in that case, what is saying, it's very typical if this process, if we cannot control this processes from something like creating the child process, it's very typical. So for that way, we need to find the alternative solution. For that, what these people have decided, okay, why don't we create a thread in a process instead of creating a child process. So every process, suppose this is a parent process, rather than creating a child process, this process will create a thread, because threads are very easy to create, and there is no scenario of allocating resource, because threads will compulsorily will access the resources what are present with its parent process. It will not be accessing from outside. Whatever the parent process is having the resources, only those resources this particular threads are going to access. And since we said threads are very lightweight, okay, so they are lightweight processes, we call it up. So why lightweight means they will be performing whatever the task allocated to it. Once that is completed, this thread will again get back to the parent process. Means this thread can be used again for performing some other task. And moreover, scalability is much more better here because it can access the resources from this particular process only. Whatever the parent process is there, from there only it can access the resources. This is much more better. And moreover, the performance of the system will not decrease when we are creating. Now this process can create as many threads as it wants. There is no limit. It can create 10, okay, 100,000, 10,000 threads, how many it wants, it can create. No burden will be there on the system because these are lightweight processes and they'll perform the execution very fastly and they will get back to that particular parent from where it has been created. So modern day applications right now, what we are using, maybe like your WhatsApp or maybe your Facebook, we might be using some other kind of program related specific program applications. All these are actually multi-threaded based processes. Okay, so all these are multi-threaded, means multiple threads will be executing. So whenever you open a WhatsApp, multiple threads will execute. So one of the thread might be taking care of your images. For example, within the WhatsApp group, there was some function. You people have posted some images. Along with that, you posted some comments. Okay, so whenever you people are opening that particular WhatsApp, what will happen? A main thread will be executed. So whenever you're opening that application, main thread will start executing it. Now within that particular main thread, sub-threads will be generated. For example, someone has posted an image and said, okay, flash mob or something like that. Now this, whatever the statement you're typing there, flash mob, this will be handled by one thread. Okay, there will be a one thread which will be handling this particular situation. And there will be another thread which will be handling that images. I'll explain practically here with the help of your web browser. Just give me a small time here. So let us suppose I am opening a Google Chrome now. So I have clicked on Google Chrome. So this is one process. Now whatever you people are going to see here, this is a single process, a main process. If you see here, this is a web browser that has been opened. Now this is one browser. Now this browser itself, this process itself consists of multiple threads. Like for example, you might be seeing here some kind of icons here. See this Amazon, Google, and State Bank, YouTube. All these are handled by one particular process because these are images. Now if you look at here, we have something called here the name labels for that: Google, Amazon.in, State Bank. So these are all handled by separate process. Same if you observe here, this one, it is having a separate, this particular tab will be handled by a separate process. Now in that you have something called as a microphone icon. Now this will be having a separate thread. Now you can understand this is a whole single process. This process is having how many threads? So each one individually carried. So this is one thread, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, and maybe this is represent, this is one kind of thread. Now if I type something like here, something like google.co.in. So what happens, we got this, okay, so I'm just trying to get images, like we are discussing about operating system. Operating, okay, let me erase it up. Okay, so we are typing something called as operating system diagrams. Okay, now see here, this particular page which is we received from the server, it actually consists of several different, it is a combination of images as well as alphabets, okay, the words. Apart from that, it has tabs also. Okay, so if you observe here, there are multiple threads are executing here. All these diagrams, what you people are seeing here, these diagrams are actually handled by one particular thread. And whereas coming to this particular portion, this feedback operating system, whatever you're saying, see, this one is nothing but this is a set of statements. So these statements are handled by one particular thread. Okay, so where these threads are created within web browser. This is a process. So already I told you how these processes are being used here. I'll show you here. If you go to the task manager here, so in this you people can see. So if you see a Google Chrome, so these are applications what I have opened right now. So right now I have applications for Google Chrome, Microsoft Office, Teams, OpenBoard, PC. Now if you look at it, these all are nothing but the processes. And so there are total 6 foreground processes what I am running right now. These are user defined processes. Whereas coming to the background, in the background, these all processes are executing. How many? 50. 50 processes are getting executed in the background. Okay, apart from that, we have system related processes too. That I'll show you here. It will be somewhere here. Yeah, here, if you look at here, there are around 23 system related processes that are getting executed. Now, which one is having higher priority? As I told you, what is the main reason for developing the system is it should be used by the users for the convenience of users. So whatever the applications you people are seeing here, this will be having a higher priority. So whenever we are performing any operation here, this will be having higher priority. Whereas coming to the background process and the system related process, they will be having a low priority. So this is the way it actually works. Okay, now this Google Chrome will be creating multiple threads. So rather than, if you can see here, if this particular Google Chrome is having another tab, let us suppose I'm opening a tab now here, I just opened here. So what happened here? This is the main process in which I have created another child process. Now this tab is the child process, whatever you people are seeing. Now I'll show you in the task manager. In the background, see here. So in the background, how many Chromes have been opened up? So these all are related to your this. So I have created another tab now. So these are open. Now if I close this tab, you can see here, it will change. See here, if you can see here, the number of the Chrome threads process will automatically get reduced. So this is related to your background thread. So these are something like threads, not exactly threads, but internally these will have different threads, and those threads will be handling your operation. Okay. So this is the way it actually works. Now, here coming to threads, since we can create multiple threads and we already said that the resources, whatever present with the parent process, only that will be accessed, it becomes easier for you. That's the reason we people actually develop applications which are multi-threaded in nature. So here this is the architecture of multi-threaded process which is explaining. This is your client. Client is nothing but earlier I have opened a web browser, so I am the client. So I have sent a request. What is the request I have sent? Google.com. Okay, the Google.co.in I have typed it. So I have sent a request to the server. What the server did, so server has represented me a page called as google.co.in. But before getting that, what the server did is he initiated one thread for this particular request. Earlier, traditional systems, the server will be initiating one process, not thread. And this process will handle my request. But nowadays, whatever we are using, we are advanced, so much advanced in technology, the servers are not creating process because it's an overburden for this. So these people are creating threads, and that thread is this. So this thread is created. Now this thread will take care of your request, that is google.com, Gmail, whatever you people are typing. And based on that, this thread will be giving you the results related to your request, whatever you people are transmitting. So this is the way how threads actually work. So this is a simple architecture related to this. So what are the different benefits we do have related to your multi-threading concepts? Well, there are so many benefits. Few have been explained here, something called as responsiveness. So here, since we are saying that threads are lightweight process, so definitely they can execute much more faster when compared to your process, isn't it? So they are very fast in doing it. So what happens automatically? The response for each and every request sent by either the client or some user will be represented very fastly. If you see here, when I clicked on the Google Chrome, so here when I typed google.co.in, so how fastly it is giving it up? See, immediately people are getting within some fraction of seconds, people got this particular page. If I'm clicking on Gmail, I can see within a fraction of seconds you are getting that. How fastly it is responding, how it is doing it means nothing but the threads. Because threads are lightweight process, they immediately provide you the entire information very fastly. So the response is very much higher. So we don't have to wait for anything. So that is what comes under responsiveness. Okay. Next comes resource sharing. So well, obviously the resources, as we already discussed, so whenever a particular process is creating a thread, that thread will be accessing resource from that particular process. So there is no burden for the operating system to allocate resource to this particular thread. So definitely it is much more better. So all these threads, whatever belong, remember, whatever the threads are created by one particular process, they can share the resources among each other. Okay, all these threads, suppose T1, T2, T3 belongs to process P1. whatever the resources this P1 is having can be accessed by T1, T2, T3, and they can share the information. But if you have another process here, he also created T1, T2, T3. Now these threads cannot access or share the resource with this particular thread. Why? Because these threads belong to this particular process. This is something like, two different families are having a children. Okay, so first family is having certain property which is distributed to the children. Second family is having the property distributed to them. Now these properties cannot be shared by these particular children because both are entirely different. Okay, so that is the only difference that exists for threads. Threads can share the resources with the other threads belonging to the same parent process. But if they belong to some other different process, they cannot share the resources. That you people have to keep in mind. Now, isn't it economical now? Creating a new process, that process is creating a child process. Again, allocating resource is a burden. So it is time consuming. Power consumption will be there. But whereas coming to thread, no such kind of scenario. So it is much more cheaper, right? So then process, it is obviously creating threads is cheaper than process creation. So definitely threads can switch between each other. They can transmit the direction within the process. So it is much more economical in nature. Apart from that, it is called as scalable here. Scalable is nothing but it can be taken advantage of multi-processor architecture. So multiple processes will be executing. So here see P1 processes means P1, P2, P3 execute simultaneously. They will create some their own threads like this, and these will be executing simultaneously. It's very easy. And what happens here in multiprocessor, these three different processes are getting executed simultaneously. And whatever the task is allocated to them, they are executing parallelly. So what happens, the work becomes much more faster. It's a common scenario. If a one person is doing all the work, definitely it is going to take time. But if you split that work into multiple people and do it up, the time will be reduced and the work will be much more faster. The same scenario has been used here in your threading concept. Okay. So this is the definition. So these are the diagrams related to your thread. So every thread will have its own. So whenever I told you, every thread will open or they'll have resources from the parent. So within the resource, whatever these threads are going to get is nothing but code. I think we already discussed this in the previous session related to your OS. First, we have every process will have something, the program. So we have something called here as text section. We had something called as data section. Then we had something called as heap. Okay, this is a space where process is going to execute, and this is a space what we call it as tag, right? So tags are used for storing temporary variables. Heap is used for storing, providing dynamically the memory whichever is required. Data section will consist of global variables. Text section will consist of your temporary variables, your return addresses, your parameters that we already discussed. Same way, each and every thread will have these properties. So that is what being represented here. The first diagram, what you are seeing here is a single threaded process. This is multiple threads. So if there is a single thread, everything belongs to that particular thread only. Like you can see here, we have a code section here. Already we discussed. Code section will consist of your entire code. Data section will consist of nothing but your whatever we discussed here. Text section that comes under here. Files. So whatever the files it want to access, it can. Registers are there in order to store the data. Stake. Already we discussed. Tags are used for storing temporary variables. Okay, so if you look at here, there is a single thread. So traditional systems used to have only one process, and this process can create only one thread. This is traditional, like in 90s, whatever the systems we have. But today's systems are something like this, advanced. So we can create multiple threads, and every thread will have its peak. Every thread will have its own cache, that is register, followed with the stack. But whereas coming to the code section, data and files, these will be shared among this because we have a process here. This process is actually sharing, creating threads, right? These are three. What did we say? Whatever the resources are allocated to this particular process will be shared among them. So this is the properties, code, data, and file. These can be shared among these three. But every thread will have its own registers for storing the information. It will have tag for storing your temporary variables and all everything. So this is the way how it is actually represented. It's very easy to understand and remember. Okay. And nowadays, remember, whatever the new applications we are designing, all actually uses this particular thing. I mean, the multi-threaded concept it is using. It is not using something called as single threaded. Even your systems are actually working on multi-threaded concepts. Now, what are the different type of threads we do have actually? Now, based upon this level, we have two different type of threads. Let me explain them, then we'll go to this. So threads are actually called as user level threads and kernel level threads. So we have kernel is related to your system, isn't it? Already we discussed in the previous session, we have something called like this. We have user space, kernel space. We had mode bits here. Okay, so whatever the user related information is will be executed here. If system related work is there, that will be executed here. So these things comes under this particular scenario. So here if you talk about thread here, we have user level threads and kernel threads. If you talk about user threads here, these are the threads which will be placed in the user space. Okay, so there will be no control of the kernel on this particular user level thread. Same way, we have kernel level threads also. These are system level threads. If you talk about user level threads, these are actually taken care by thread libraries. So we do have thread libraries. These libraries are going to control the user level threads. Same way, if you're talking about kernel means operating system will take care of these threads. Kernel level threads will be taken care by operating system. We cannot control. We can control only user level threads. How? You people are writing in a C program hash include stdio.h, hash include stdconio.h, right? What are those? Those are the libraries. Those libraries actually consist of these threads. You people already might have written in Java programming, you people might have created multiple threads. Okay, single thread, multiple threads. So how you people are creating threads there? You people are importing a package related to that particular thread, isn't it? So all those things comes under thread library. Whereas coming to kernel, we cannot control them. Only operating system can control the threads which are present in kernel. Okay, but remember, in order to make our task execute successfully, these two threads need to communicate. There should be existing some kind of relationship between the user and kernel. So what are the relations we have? We will see in the coming slide. Okay, now based on this, whatever I have explained, your threads are classified into three types based upon the operating systems we have. Something called as POSIX P thread. Well, P is nothing but it's an extension of your POSIX. Then we have Windows thread, Java. Java threads you might be familiar with. You people already worked on it. So those comes Java threads. These are mostly used to write the programs and execute in Java platform. That is, Java platform is nothing but JVM. So whatever the Java programs you people are writing, you will be executing on JVM. Now this JVM will be providing all these threads. Whereas coming to POSIX, this is related to your family of Linux. So all the Linux, Unix, we have Ubuntu, isn't it? So all these will be using this particular POSIX thread. Now, if you are working on a Windows operating system, then Windows will provide Windows threads. So what are the system calls we are going to use in here? Already we discussed in the first unit. So we will see within the program how those system calls are being used in order to create different threads. So basically we have only three different type of threads here with respect to your operating system. POSIX, which is used in Ubuntu, Linux, all the flavors of your Linux-based operating systems. If you talk about Windows, all the Windows flavors, whatever we are having, like Windows 10, 7, 8, 8.1 Pro, all these uses Windows thread. So every, Java program we people are running will be running on a JVM in our system, so Java threads. But remember one thing, there's a small thing here. Since Java programs are run in our operating system, isn't it? So JVM runs in top of operating system. This is the operating system on top of the JVM runs. So indirectly, what is saying is these Java threads can also be controlled by Windows threads. Okay, so control Java threads too, because this JVM is residing on top of operating system. So whatever the program you are running, it is executing here, but since resources are required, so the operating system will provide resources to this particular JVM. This is what he is saying in this particular scenario. So JVM, okay, so Windows thread. POSIX will not do that. POSIX will be using P threads only. Even if you install Java in your system, P threads will be controlling the Java threads. That's what it's saying. So kernel threads, as I told you, it will be supported by kernel itself. So what are the different type of operating systems we have is Windows, Solaris, these all comes under your Linux flavors, except the last one. The last one is again entirely different now. Till here, this all comes under Linux flavors, and this is your Windows flavor. This is Mac OS related to your Apple. Okay, so these are different flavors what we do have. So based on that, the differences. So if you talk about your Mac OS operating system, the Apple which is using it, so this will have a separate kind of thread to execute it. Okay, so it will be using a separate kind of threading libraries in order to execute the different threads. So what are the relations? So here we are going to discuss about the relationship that exists. Since I told you we have user level threads and we have kernel level threads. They too have to communicate. There should be existing some kind of relation between these two in order to make our task get executed, isn't it? So in order to make our task executed, there should be some kind of relation. Means they should communicate with each other. How they can communicate? Based upon these three different types. So we have many to one to one, and many to many. Based upon these three, these particular, so many to one means many user level threads are connected to one kernel thread. One to one means one user level thread is connected to one kernel. Many to many means one user level means many user level threads are connected to many user level kernels. Well, I'll represent that with the example, I mean with the diagram. You can see and understand them. So basically we have only three models here, many to one, many to many. The first one, many to one. So what does that mean? We can create many user level threads. These all are user level threads. Means we are creating using our program like Java program or something like that. We are creating multiple threads. Okay. Now, but these multiple threads can access the kernel one at a time. If you observe here, many to one means we will be having only one system level thread, but many user level threads. But at a time, only one user level thread can access this particular kernel level thread. Once this particular thread completes its execution, then the next thread will be given. Let us suppose first this thread is executing. So this thread will be given the kernel. He will execute. In the meantime, these three threads are in a waiting state. Okay, they are waiting. So once when this particular thread completes it, then the next thread will be given the chance and he will enter into the system level thread, access the system level thread, and he will start executing. Then these two will be in a waiting state. This is the way it actually executes. So we can have many user level threads, but ultimately we'll be having a single level thread. This is something like a Tirupati counter, like Prasadam counter we do have. Okay, so there what happens, there will be a single kernel thread. One person only will be distributing it, but there will be many users standing there. So at a time only one person can stand in front of counter and he can try to get the prasad. Okay, so that is what been explained here. This is the way it actually works. Okay, so definitely it has drawback here. What is the drawback here is, let us suppose this particular thread is executing this kernel thread, and this particular thread executed a block command, block. This particular thread block, it has executed a block code due to which this particular access has been blocked. Now what will happen? The remaining three threads cannot access this system level. So what will happen? They have to wait for a infinite amount of time. Okay, just a minute. So it has to wait for a infinite amount of time until and unless this particular, this particular thread is getting removed from this particular, sorry, yeah, until and unless this particular thread is removed and then this particular thread is given access. So the channel has to be opened up. That is the only drawback we have in many to one. Okay, this is something like, from multiple pipes, multiple pipes you are getting the water, but ultimately there is a single tap. If this tap is blocked, even though the water is coming from different sources, you will not get the water. Why? If this tap is then blocked. So that's what the scenario. So here this particular thread is blocking it up. The remaining three threads cannot perform the action. They might have to wait until and unless this thread is removed by the operating system. This is the only problem or the drawback we have in this many to one threading model. Next we have something called one to one. This is much more better compared to the previous one. So here what happens, for every user level thread, the system will generate one kernel thread. Something like, if there are 50, like say, I'll take the example of a Prasadam also, okay, in Tirupati Prasad the counter. If you look at here, there are 200 people are there. So 200 people will be there to give the prasad. So one person forbidden. Now here itself you people can understand the drawback of this particular model, right? So 200 people are there to take the prasad and 200 people are being provided by the management to give prasad to one by one individual, one particular person. Is it really possible? It's highly impractical, right? We cannot provide 200 people service, okay, with the help of 200 people to give the prasad. Same way here also, if we have some hundreds of threads, user level threads, we can't generate hundreds of kernel level threads. It's highly impractical. And if we are generating like that, again the system will be entering into same, like a processes, like multiple process threads. Same concept, it becomes like a process. Okay, for one process is given. So what will happen? These many processes, system will not be able to function properly. So there will be some kind of halt situations might come up. That is nothing but hanging up. Okay, but basically many of the operating system uses is Windows, Linux, Solaris, they use this kind of thing. So only problem what happens here is nothing but, as I told you, overhead will be there. For every new user level thread, we need to create a kernel. Since user level threads are controlled by us, we can create as many as we want. So it becomes typical for the system to generate that many threads. That's the drawback with this. So in order to overcome the previous drawback and this drawback, we will be seeing the next one, many to many. So this is the ultimate solution what we do have here. So in this, what is saying is, we will be having multiple user level threads. Please understand carefully. Many to many means it's not that many user level threads, many what we call kernel. No, no, that is not the case. Many to many means we can have many user level threads, whereas coming to kernel, it may be equal to the user level threads or less than that many threads. Maybe, for example, how many threads we have user level 1, 2, 3, 4. So the system can generate either 4 threads or less than 4 threads. Okay, it will not generate more than 4 threads, or it may be equal to 4, or it may be equal to 3, equal to 2, or equal to 1. So 1 is not possible because it will become many to 1. This is not possible. So it may be either 3 or 2. Okay, 4, 3, 2. I am talking about kernel threads. So if you people are creating here 10 user level threads, then the system may be generating 7 kernel level threads. Now what this happens is, these will be multiplexed. This is what we call it as multiplexing here. Multiplexing in the sense nothing but, whenever a user thread is been created, so this has to be allocated to the kernel level thread. So when this particular thread is created, whichever kernel thread is available, that will be allocated. I'll explain it just a minute. Let us suppose initially 2 user level threads are created. So all 3 kernels are empty. So what will happen? So these 2 will be assigned to any one of the kernels. So suppose this thread is allocated to this kernel, this one. After some time, this particular thread came into existence. So this is given to this. But when this thread, third thread is given to this kernel, this thread completed its execution. So what will happen? It will obviously remove this particular kernel. Now what happened? Now fourth thread came into existence. Now during this fourth thread, the system will find out which kernel is sitting in idle. So since these two are occupied, this is empty, this will be allocated to this particular kernel. This is what we call it as multiplexing. So at that time, whichever kernel is available, kernel thread is available, that will be provided to the user thread so that he can perform the operation. This is what we call multiplexing. I'll give an example for this. Your GSM, we all people are using in our smartphone the GSM based technology, right? So what this GSM does is nothing but, GSM will have certain frequencies. Let us suppose like this, it will have 10 frequencies. Whenever you are trying to connect to your friend, so whichever frequency is available, your system will connect to that frequency from there to your friend. So let us suppose you are disconnected it, again you are connecting to your friend, then it will not use the same frequency. At that time, some other person might have been using this frequency. So at that time, what it will does is, it will try to use a frequency whichever is empty. Let us suppose second slot is empty. This frequency is allocated to you. Now you people are going to have a conversation. Same way here also, same thing is happening. That is what we call multiplexing. So with a limited number of kernel threads, it is able to satisfy each and every one. Okay. So how many kernel threads we are going to create is, either it may be equal to the user level thread, or it may be less than that. It will not be one to one. Okay. Because if one to one it happens, it will be become much more. One to one means it becomes more number of it. So it becomes one-to-one relation, not many-to-many. So this is what he's talking about in this particular threading. So only three threads we do have: one-to-one, many-to-many, many-to-one. So what are the drawbacks we have in many-to-one and one-to-one that are overcome by this particular many-to-many concept? Okay. So coming to the thread libraries here. Okay, fine. Since the time is up, we'll discuss this concept tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow you will see online by time. So we'll start the class. So thread libraries we'll see tomorrow. In this we are going to discuss about, or we are going to take a small program. I'll just in short give you. The program is you people have to do summation of non-negative integers. Suppose I am giving the value of n equal to 10. You people have to add this 10 values like 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, 5, 6, so on plus 10. You people have to write a program for this. Basically, it's very easy. You people can write it, but we will be seeing how we generate threads, and these threads are going to execute. Actually, whatever the program we require, we write it up, that is a process, isn't it? Now, we are not going to write a code to execute within that particular program, that process. We will be creating a thread. That thread will execute this program, not the process, remember. Okay. So in that we'll be seeing three different type threads. We'll see a program related to your P thread, then we'll discuss related to your Windows, Java. I think Java, you people know how to create threads. So I want you people to try writing this program in Java using threads. You know how to create a thread, isn't it? So using thread, you should execute this logic. So please try this, and tomorrow you just come up with this particular threads related program. Anyhow, we will discuss it, but I want you people to try using threads concept, write a Java program for summation of n values, n non-integer values, non-negative integer values. Means there should not be any negative numbers, all positive numbers. Okay. See, people can do that, and then I'll explain you the related concepts to this. So,